Holy kaleidoscope, Batman. There's a lot of colors out there. Sometimes I forget how many I have, and this is just some of the ones that have been paletted. Hello, minders. Welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor. You know, sometimes it's helpful to look over palettes and rethink something, a formula, maybe colors that I normally use, just to sort of freshen up my ideas. And I just got a question recently from a patron about spring greens. Thought it was a good question. I tend to like to work on any one piece in a limited palette. Now, you wouldn't know that to take a look at some of these palettes that I use. Most recently, if you've been watching my channel, you know that I've been painting a lot out of the 10 color selection that I curated with Mgram. That's these colors. So sometimes it's valuable just to step back, rethink a color, and rethink other ways in which it could be done. And I do that for you guys as much as I do that for me. Spring greens are just beautiful greens. They're lighter, more vibrant, intense greens that you see when the leaf and the buds are just coming out. So I'm going to go through and see how many I can find out of the colors that I have. Now, there are all kinds of mixes, so we're not going to get into a lot of complex mixes. We're going to get into like base colors that you would start out with, maybe convenience colors right out of the tube, and maybe some two-color mixes. And then we're going to talk about how to shade those greens. Let's get out some watercolor paper and let's look at mixing up some really nice spring greens. All right, well, let's start out with two of my favorites. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is because go-tos are fine, but, you know, sometimes we get into ruts. I know I sure do. This is why this kind of exercise is valuable, as I've already mentioned. It's just kind of reassessing how you look at certain colors and the mixes you use. So this is a big favorite of mine. Anybody that's been watching my channel for long, if you want to challenge yourself before I mention the name, try to guess what it is. Okay, you looking at it? Yeah, well, if you guessed Azo Green, you are correct. And I get a lot of questions about this color. It's like, you listed Azo Green, but I can't find that. It's like, well, Mgram is one of the few, and this is Mgram, is one of the few that uses that name. In most colors, it's green gold. In the case of Daniel Smith, for example, it could be green gold, but it's really more of a rich green gold. So I am painting, by the way, on Canson Heritage hot press. The only reason I'm using hot press is because colors tend to be a little more vibrant on hot press, and so I'm hoping you will be able to see that. So that right there is a good start for a lot of spring greens. Now, a good companion color to that, if you're wanting to start out more yellow, is Nickel Azo Yellow. So to me, Nickel Azo Yellow is just another green gold. And there are lots of green golds. I'm going to pull out a few more here brand-wise to show you. Much more lemony, but still a very noticeable green component to it. Now, by itself, I rarely ever think any color out of a tube by itself is something that you paint a subject with. You know, it's almost always complex mixes. So let's look at just a couple of mix and match. Here is Core. Very similar, maybe a little greener. Again, in Core, it's not called Azo Green, it's called Green Gold. Here's Mission Gold. It looks much more like a quinacridone, nickel quinacridone gold than it does the green gold. So it's very gold and a little less of a green component. All right, so here's one I don't use very often, or really don't use at all. Not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just a brand that I haven't gotten into, haven't dove into. But this is Da Vinci. Very close to Core's green gold. Painted both of these, I think, darker than I did the Mgram. That's just a human differential, not necessarily a pigment characteristic. Now let's take a look at Daniel Smith's green gold, and I'm going to put this over to the side. It's a little different, I think. You'll see immediately what I mean. This is going to start a whole other category. And this is really an excellent spring green. If you want something that comes close out of the tube to get you started, requires very little mixing, Daniel Smith's green gold might fill that bill. Now, if you're a Daniel Smith fan and you want something closer to the green gold here, or the Azo Green and Mgram, it would be Daniel Smith's Rich Green Gold. I have a dot card sample. This is Daniel Smith Rich Green Gold. So we're very similar to M grams azo green. And down here, we'll get into some shadow colors or some mixing colors to go with that. But I want to start another category over here of some other lighter greens. First of all, let me label these before I lose track. Alrighty, so here's a close-up, and I've labeled these. I'm going to call this the green gold category, but that includes the azo green from M gram, the nickel azo yellow, which is just a lighter version, I think, of this, about the same green component. Core, Mission Gold, Da Vinci, and Daniel Smith, rich green gold. But I want to start another category. We're going to call this light greens. And in general, these tend to be a little more convenience colors. I'm not going to get into pigment numbers on all this, okay? You can look up these brands. They have charts online that give you the pigment numbers. Pigment numbers are great, maybe for identifying a particular kind of pigment. They're not good for matching, though. Most pigments will differ from brand to brand. So if you're just really curious about the pigment numbers, then you can go look up these brands online and find their charts. I am mostly concerned about mixing and the hues. And light greens tend to be heavily convenience colors, which usually means they'll be made up of at least 2, sometimes 3, and I've even seen 4 colors. This one is Daniel Smith, green gold. Now remember, this was the green gold, this was their rich green gold. So you can see the difference there. Another one you'll typically see, I like to put in this category, is Phthalo Green Light. Now the only phthalo green light I have is a Sennelier. Now you're going to see a lot of difference in these, what I categorize as light greens. But they are good base colors to mix from for spring greens, because of their intensity. So yeah, that's just a very light phthalo green. Another one is Schminke's May Green. Another similar one in this category is Da Vinci's Leaf Green. And I'll throw one more in here at you. This is Mission Gold's Yellow Green. So 2 slightly different starting places. Let's look at another, and this is also a great starting place. Cool yellows. Or you could just say light yellows. That's as opposed to really warm orangey yellows. You can do that, I mean, like an Indian yellow, for instance, but I think this kind of category kind of covers the warm areas and adds a green component already. So I think a real important area to look at for springy type greens is starting place is cool yellows. First up, off of my usual palette. Now this may be a little contaminated. I didn't clean it off very well. This is Azo Yellow. It's got a little green in it, not naturally. Like I said, I'm tried to clean it off here, but hopefully you'll get the idea. And every time I talk about cool or warm colors, I get the question. I always get the question. You experienced painters can help me out down there in the comments, okay? Look for this question because I always get it. The difference is where it leans, not the color itself. So you may think of blue as a cool color, but it's not necessarily what it is, it's where it leans. So a blue that leans warm, that's towards the red side, is considered a warm blue. One that leans towards the cool side or the greener side is cool. And a color is warm or cool based on how it compares to others in its same category. Warmer or cooler compared to what? That's the question. The closer towards green that it gets, the cooler it is. So again, you experienced painters out there, help me out here. Very common one that you will see in multiple different brands is lemon yellow. Lemon yellow is a good cool yellow. That's Mission Gold's version, by the way. And again, this is just to categorize these and also give you some brand choices as you're looking. Schminke, this is Schminke's version of lemon yellow. Very nice, cool yellow. It's about as yellow as you can get without turning green, basically. That's the way I look at a cool yellow. All right, this is from Mission Gold. It's Azo. This is Lemon. Schminke. Lemon. All right, we're going to look at one more in the cool yellows category. And so many of these on my palette are kind of contaminated with green because I typically use them in green mixtures. But I'm trying to clean them off. This is a Hansa yellow. Hansa is going to be in the same category. And you're going to get all kinds of Hansas. You're going to get Hansas that are deeper and warmer and oranger. This is a light Hansa. This is from Core. All right, here are what I would consider great starting places for spring greens. Sorry, I mislabeled this. I said that was Mission Gold, that was Sennelier. So where do we go from here? And that's what we're going to look at next. And there are just so many places we could go from here. I mean, you could intermix these, you know, you could get all kinds of different hues of green, but we're going to specifically focus on the deeper values because you're going to have the lightest values and then you're going to have the deeper shadow values. There's so many ways you could do that. A couple of considerations though, and it depends on how deep you want the shadows to be, how cool or warm, or how intense. Now, for me, all of these are too brilliant to be natural. They're very beautiful, and in some cases, you may have little smidgens of that kind of intensity, but I'm probably going to neutralize them somewhat. So I'm not going to necessarily choose just brilliant colors, but let's start there anyway. I'll just show you some colors that will make for brilliant shadows. And usually I'll take a green and I'll go cooler, or a green blue and go cooler. Shadows a lot of times are cooler, not necessarily, but they're usually cooler. So this is our good old friend, the very rich and intense phthalo green blue shade. Now I'm going to just pick one color out of these categories, each of these categories, and look at the mix. We're going to get, you know, sort of a spectrum here. And don't forget, you know, if you tint out these colors, they can be your lightest values. Yeah, so phthalo green blue shade. Now that's going to give you a very, very neon intensity tree. So you can always add some neutralization. Two ways I like to neutralize. Neutral tint, and you can use both a deeper cool green along with some neutral tint to keep it from getting too intense. Or you can just go straight in to your neutral tint. But now you may not have enough green. So either one or a combination of those is valid. Let's do this one more time. Only this time we're going to use a different neutralizer. We're going to continue to use phthalo green blue shade, azo green or green gold. And our third component is Payne's gray. But Payne's gray is a good choice for green. It doesn't neutralize all colors well, but since it has a blue-green component in it already, it's excellent for neutralizing intense greens. Keep your greens interesting and variegated. Do some careful observation of the shadow colors and do a lot of practice mixing. Let's do this one more time and I'll show you one more way to neutralize. This is going to be specific to the color that you're using because it's using complements. So we're going to do the same thing. Azo green or green golds with phthalo green blue shade. Got our nice spring greens occurring in here. Now I'm going to take a little dioxazine purple. Now that's a complement to the yellow green, but it also does some really interesting things with the phthalo green. Now you're not limited to phthalo green. There's Prussian blue. Prussian blue is going to give you some nice interesting shadows. And then you can add any of these other neutralizers, a complement. Another one I like is turquoise. Again, a bluer alternative, but than phthalo green blue shade, but works really, really well with azo green or green golds. Now, so what about the light greens? And with the light greens, you're a little further along the path because you already end up with a very bright green. So really, the chore is just neutralizing or maybe shifting it blue. So again, you have careful look at your shadows. This is the Schmincke May Green. I'm going to use that sort of to represent this category. And this is with Payne's Gray and a little bit of phthalo green blue shade, similar to what I did over here, but your results are a little different. But because you are already a light green, you can choose to just keep it to neutralization. My choice for this would probably be, for the most part, Payne's Gray. That's a very gray-green. Not super interesting, but if you're going for a more naturalized color, not something unnaturally intense, that might be good. And you can always cool it off. Put a little Prussian blue in there just for fun. Turquoise, something like that would be great. And what about a complement? Yellow green is going to be probably complemented with a violet, like a red violet. Let's see if how that works. It gives you a brownish neutralization, brownish shadows. And sometimes shadows are warm. I'm going to add a little Payne's Gray to that. Let's go really blue, see what happens. That's pretty. Very intense, but pretty. So you can bring the neutralization in, but you can also bring the subtlety of other colors. So many possibilities. I mean, so many possibilities. All right, and lastly, we're just going to look at the yellows real quick. And here, you're needing to create a green, so I'm going to just bring in Azo Yellow, use that to represent the cool yellow category. And here you can go a little bluer. So I'm going to move over, let's see, am I going to go Prussian blue? I think instead of Prussian blue, I'm going to go turquoise. Ooh, yeah. See, now you're getting the kaleidoscope of these yellows, then these light greens in there. And while, you know, the green gold tends to be where I start a lot of times with yellow greens and spring greens, these cooler yellow greens are just really nice, and it's something I probably ought to use a little more often. I'm going to put some Payne's Gray in here to kind of neutralize it some and see what that looks like. Let's get some yellow out here and maybe a little bit of... Let's try something different. Let's try sap green. Now, while I think sap green is a beautiful color by itself, I'm not a big fan of it because it's so overused with landscape painters and it's boring. And the reason it's boring is because most painters are pretty lazy with it. They don't change it up. Sap green is so close to a perfect summertime green that you never see anything different. But mixed with some of this cool yellow, you keep mindful of your variegation. Maybe throw in a spot of phthalo green here and there. And where you need it, some Payne's Gray. You know, after doing this exercise, and this is exactly why I did it, this may be the way to go with spring greens. It's just starting with your cool yellows. There's so many possibilities. All right, so let me just, to recap on the neutralization, not neutralization, but the shadows. We're going to use phthalo green here to kind of represent the blue-green category. And this could be a whole range. This could be all the way down to, from phthalo green all the way down to phthalo blue-green shade. It could be turquoise. It could be viridian. You know what? Let me throw some viridian in there. Got some handy here. Viridian has a phthalo green cast to it, but it's not nearly as overpowering. So that may be useful. Turquoise. This is M. Graham's turquoise, and it can be very deep, so it could give you some nice deeps. So again, we're talking about shadows, number 1. Number 2, neutralization. Payne's Gray. Extremely deep. Payne's Gray can vary a lot too with brand. This is a very blue Payne's Gray. This is M. Graham's. I've seen them lean more green. Neutralizing factor, of course, is your good old neutral tint. M. Graham, by far my favorite. And lastly would be a complement. And the complement could be a complement of your green, your brilliant deep greens, which in this case, like a phthalo green would be a red. You need to get out your color wheel to know, and you need to do some experiments. But on the yellow side, it could be a purple. So I'm just going to put a dioxazine purple down here to represent complements. So neutralizers, deepeners, any combination thereof to get the effect you're looking for. And mixing just takes practice, takes time, and it takes familiarity with the colors. There's no color, like what color are you using? There's this. And you see right here, you've got a dozen different ways of mixing. So a lot of colors. I'm using color theory. I'm using mixing. I'm mixing on the fly. I'm mixing visually. And that's what you need to do and learn to do. And this also should illustrate. When someone says, what color is that? It's like, well, it could be out of this family, or it could be out of this family, or it could be out of this family. Chances are, if you've bought a basic palette of colors, you probably have the colors you need to do what you need to do. Just learn how to use them. All right, so I'm going to do a quick little tree for you, a little demo of spring greens. I'm going to use starting place number 3, simply because that's someplace I don't usually start with the lemon yellow. So I'm going to start with Azo Yellow, which is essentially like a Hansa Yellow light or a lemon yellow. I'm going to get a lot of that out here. got my yellow. I'm going to just start splashing in some of this phthalo green blue shade just to start getting it to tint. I'm on an incline here, so stuff is running to the bottom. This is the wet and wet stage, so we'll actually kind of firm things up after it dries. So using my Lebanson Goat and Sythetic blend. Such a great tree brush because of that tip, which just, when you do this sort of thing, it dances. All right, what I'm going to do is bring in some Prussian blue and start undershadowing this. Again, some of this will take on a more solid form, or sharper, I guess I should say sharper edge once it's dry. But I can begin the process while it's still wet. Let's have the light value coming from this direction. So I'm going to leave it most heavily yellow there. I'm going to bring in just a little bit of Payne's Gray, but I'm going to blue that out a little bit with, let's bring in some Cobalt Blue, which is a little bit cooler than ultramarine, tends to skew a little warmer. You're going to have areas, as your tree is dimensional this way, it's not just dimensional this way, it's dimensional. So underneath the canopy, you're going to have more shadow areas. So don't forget to account for that and let whole areas go into shadow. And you think in 3 dimensions. My wash is drying out, so I'm able to get a few more distinct shapes. Just a little discussion that has nothing to do with color, since I'm using hot press this time. It dries quicker. I mentioned in the beginning how colors are a little more intense because they tend to sit on top of hot press paper. So I just want to push back some of these underneath bundles of foliage. And this side over here can be more in shadow. Now, if you're painting this against a dark background, you probably want to add a masking edge or mask this part, depending on what part is in the really dark background. You could paint around some of these shapes, okay? Yeah, pretty happy with that. Let's put in some branches. Tree trunks are usually a warm gray, so I'm going to use some neutral tint, a little bit of sepia. Let's do our main trunk. Let's do something really kind of fat and interesting. Maybe a sideways kind of trunk. Some of this is still wet, which is fine. I don't mind having some of this actually disappear. And then it's just a matter of, you know, weaving these branches in and out of the foliage canopy. Well, that was really wet there and really bled more than I wanted it to, so we're going to blot that just a tad. And I'm going to let that dry more before I do any more to it. As you get to these outer parts of the canopy, of course, the branches usually get a lot finer. I like to place my branches in the darker areas, you know, meaning that they're underneath a clump of foliage and they are, you're seeing the shadow behind it. But if you want to, you know, you can like draw them into a lighter area and then go back and add some shadow. That works too. Just make sure they radiate in a logical way. Do a lot of observation. I observe a lot of trees, and that is where my visual library comes from. It's mental. It's a mental visual library. I spend a lot of time looking at and sketching. And I could get, I think that gives the basic idea. I could get more detail, get a smaller brush. And just to kind of recap, I have used the lemon yellow starting place for the spring greens. And I have neutralized or shadowed the darker areas with touches of phthalo green blue shade, I think I used a tiny bit of Prussian blue, some cobalt blue and Payne's gray mixed. All right, I think that gets the point across. Hopefully that helps you with the actual application. Try new things, branch out. Thanks everyone, appreciate you watching. Thank you so much, patrons, for your support. We'll see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye.